Good morning, everybody. Everything new under the sun. Well, economic collapse is one of the things, obviously, that we've been watching and kind of waiting for, kind of the next 1929. And the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse seem to speak to that famine and death and war. And all that is what came out of basically 1929, the Great Depression. And what's happening in the stock markets? If you watch Gregory Mannarino, he's a stock market guy. Record high, record high, record high every day in the stock market, the Dow Jones, and etc. And so the markets are going up, 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 and there's been no real pullback or price correction. And mainstream media is even talking about this a lot. And that's one of the things I think that's going to kick off the 7-year period. It's going to be one of the things that the Antichrist, world leader, is going to come in and attempt to fix. So there's going to be an Antichrist leader. He's going to come in and say, you know what, there's a whole bunch wrong in the world today. We've got a pandemic. We've got economic collapse and famine. I'm going to fix all that. All you need to do is accept the mark of the beast. I believe that's going to be, it's going to be even greater than just a health emergency or crisis. It's going to be a global world crisis and a complete crash of everything, where people are desperate. They give up their sovereignty, their country's sovereignty. They vote for it to accept this world leader. And so I think that's what's coming. And so social collapse, civil unrest, and the Antichrist and the peace deal, these are all things that are coming in and I don't, not necessarily in that order, but we're on the cusp of that. And the stock market keeps going up. And how long will it keep going up for? I don't know. But the Federal Reserve itself is now issuing a warning about the market. So this is your hedge. Fed issues market red alert, warns stocks vulnerable to significant declines. All right. So the Federal Reserve itself, of all outlets, is warning of trouble in the markets, and they're sugarcoating it. Significant declines in anybody else's terms would likely mean 1929 stock market collapse. It says it's not just increasingly more banks warning that the market is in a bubble. So J.P. Morgan, etc., have warned that the market is in a bubble. But the Fed, moments ago in its annual semi-annual financial stability report, the Fed issued the same warning. In the 85-page published report, it says the Fed warned that, as Bloomberg put it, prices of risky assets keep rising, making them more susceptible to perilous crashes if the economy takes a turn for the worse. Adding that asset prices remain vulnerable to significant decline should investor risk sentiment deteriorate, progress on containing the virus disappoint, or the economic recovery stall. So there's multiple things which would cause absolute catastrophe in the markets. Now, I have friends and family who are in the process of selling and buying, and they're getting great money for their houses. This is the top of the market. But they're also buying in to the top of the market for house prices as well, spending as much as $500,000, $700,000. And where we live, my house originally cost 10 years ago $150,000. So houses have come a long way since then, and they're getting themselves into potentially a lot of debt with inflation increasing and the specter of interest rates increasing. As inflation increases, the Federal Reserve is going to have to raise interest rates to cool down the housing market so that it doesn't collapse. They're going to try. And also, the Federal Reserve doesn't have any bullets left in its guns. Should another financial problem come upon them, where they need to lower interest rates to boost the economy again. I mean, that goes without saying that we're in financial trouble right now, and all sorts of trouble. But they can't do anything. They can't lower the rates much further. They don't have a lot of bullets to be able to fire against that should trouble come. So they're going to want to increase interest rates so that when a big trouble comes again, they can lower them again. So increased interest rates means that everybody's going to be paying a lot more on the mortgage. And when you start paying $500,000, $700,000, $1 million for a house, any interest rate increase will be pretty much unsustainable for a lot of people. That means when they do, and they have to, when they do, a lot of people are going to be selling their homes, foreclosing on their homes, going bankrupt, not able to pay their mortgage. And that includes me, even with only what amounts to 100,000 Canadian left on a mortgage. And so that's going to be a problem, obviously, for many people. There's going to be some Mad Max times coming. There's going to be some very hard times. So bad, again, that people will give up their freedom and their autonomy. They will give up their civil rights, and the countries will give up their nationhoods and their sovereignty to accept a one world leader who will come to fix the world. It goes on and says, the Fed's full review of current level vulnerabilities is as follows. Asset valuation, so houses. Prices of risky assets generally increase since the previous report. In some markets, prices are high compared to expected cash flows. House prices have increased rapidly since May, continuing to outstrip increases in rent. Nevertheless, despite rising housing valuations, little evidence exists of deteriorating credit standards or highly leveraged investment. Number 2, borrowing by businesses and households. We've had this pandemic for 2 years. Businesses have borrowed to stay afloat because there's been no income. They haven't been able to buy and sell products because the government has locked everybody down. And so businesses have went into record debt. It's something they're going to have to pay off. That's going to take a chunk out of their profitability. A lot of businesses have just simply closed. They've given up. Number 3, leverage in the financial sector. Bank profits have been strong this year. Of course, the banks always win. And capital ratios remained well in excess of regulatory requirements. Some challenging conditions remain due to compressed net interest margins and loans in the sector most affected by COVID-19. So those people who took out loans because of COVID, they are going to be in trouble. Number 4, funding risk. Domestic banks relied only modestly on short-term wholesale funding and continue to maintain sizable holdings of high-quality liquid assets. By contrast, structural vulnerabilities persist and sometimes with MMS and other cash management vehicles. So there's significant problems that the Federal Reserve themselves, not just any old bank, JP Morgan, whatever, is saying, but the Federal Reserve themselves. Now, the uneducated economist said quite an interesting thing as it relates to mortgages. As interest rates go positive and then negative, so that the Federal Reserve can control the economy, what do negative interest rates mean for your mortgage? Now, this is an interesting thing. I wonder if I can find my comment about interest rates. I don't know if I have it here. I don't know if I can find the particular slide. But basically he said that as interest rates go negative, people who have mortgages won't. Let's go back to that. People who have let's go on this one. Here's the increased birth pains and how waves start out small, and as they crash onto the shore, they get bigger and bigger, and then they finally crash and they break. And that's exactly what we see coming, birth pains, until the birth of all this stuff. But he says if you have a mortgage and interest rates are high, you want to pay that off really quickly. Because interest rates are high, that means the faster you pay it off, the less you pay, because less interest is accruing on your debt. Well, that's not necessarily ideal for the banks. They want to keep you in your mortgage. They want you to keep paying monthly so that they have recurring revenue, as it were, monthly, that monthly money steadily coming in to pay all their bills. Well, when negative interest rates come in, you're going to be, then you'll want to you'll want to not pay your mortgage off more quickly, because the longer you leave it in there with negative interest rates, the lower the cost of borrowing becomes, because every year interest rates are negative, and so you're going to want to leave it in there, because effectively that's chewing down your mortgage. The bank is doing it for you by leaving the money on them and keeping that loan high with negative interest rates. So that's an encouragement for you to leave your money in the bank, or not pay off your loan, rather. And the bank then gets effectively a monthly subscriber for life, because no one's interested in paying off a mortgage quickly, because they would end up paying more for it if they pay it off quickly than if they left it in the bank. So that fits into the mark of the beast. What I've said before is that the government wants you to keep your money in the bank. That way they can control it. That way they know what's happening. That way they can see what you're buying and selling. They want to move to a digital currency. I want to see if I could find that slide again. Boy, I can't seem to find it. Just give me a second here. I'll see if I can find it. Let's see. Ah, yes. Yeah, here it is. So this was my steps to the mark of the beast. And again, so they want to control your money. That means they need to have your money in the bank. If you have cash out, you can buy and sell, and they can't control you buying and selling with cash, right? So they're going to give you a reason to leave it in the bank and to use digital means to pay for all your goods and services. Hands up, everybody who uses cash anymore. Not very many people. And so I had kind of this list of the steps to the mark of the beast. Well, number one, interest rates head to zero as economic woes continue. And that's really where we're headed. And that's where the banks want it to go. Number two, interest rates go negative to further help the markets. And this helps the banks, because then you keep your money in the bank, because you know if you pay it off, it's going to be more expensive. People start pulling their money from the banks. They start hoarding cash because they're losing money in the bank. Because if you have savings in the bank, you're going to be losing money. But if you have a big loan in the bank, that loan is going to be decreasing. So overall, you're going to owe less if you leave it in the bank. Number four, the government restricts use of cash and outlaws it, because the money has to stay in the bank, because they want to track you. They want you to use digital means to spend that money, so they can know what you're buying and selling, and they can control you. And with negative interest rates, again, they're going to encourage you to keep your mortgages, to keep your money in the bank, and to basically rely on the bank with loans. Anybody who has cash, they're going to force you, or cash in the bank, they're going to force you to leave it there and move to a cashless system. And so they're collecting your cash on both sides of it. If you have cash, they're going to force you to leave it in there. If you don't have cash, they're effectively going to have a monthly subscriber paying in for life, literally for life. They'll never get you out of the system at that point. And so this is how they move to a digital, electronic, cashless society where they can prevent fraud, prevent criminal activity, but track what you buy and sell, and also cut you off if you are not doing something according to what they would prefer. Oh, are you not jabbed? Then they will limit you and confiscate your bank account and prevent you from buying and selling until you make that choice, until they force you, right? And so this is what they can do. They've already showing what they can do, really simply by means of limiting your movement and your ability to buy and sell. And so they're showing their hand in what will be upcoming and will be even worse in the last days. So, folks, I believe we are in the very last days. We are just prior to the 7-year period. I've been reading a lot in Revelation. Looking to do a big timeline of Revelation, where I'm setting the chapters up to figure out which chapters are prior to the 7-year period, which are during the 7-year period, which are after. And I think it's going to be a great visual indicator of what Revelation looks like, and kind of the timeline, because the chapters in Revelation, they overlap each other. It'll speak about a certain period of time, For example, the four horsemen of the apocalypse and that first 3.5 year period, the seals, and then it'll speak of something else, and then it'll go back to that time period and speak about what happened again at that time period on another level, or in heaven, or something else that was happening. So the revelation is layered. The chapters are layered. They're not all chronological. 6 through 14 as an example. So look forward to that. So I'm going to leave there, guys. Thanks for watching. Be prepared. We're in the last days. Stay close to the Lord. We'll see you in the next video.